Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about the best movie streaming service. They are Hulu, Netflix, Prime Video, and Disney+. So I'm going to determine the best streaming service for a specific group. Per family includes children, middle-aged men and women, and old people. I want to have a conclusion based on three aspects: availability of movies, IMDb score, and rating for all viewers. I will give each aspect a claim and use the significance test to see that if any of the streaming services satisfy the claim and win from each aspect. And we have our own thesis. Disney Plus is the best streaming service because it satisfies the claim that has the largest proportion of movies for all viewers to watch. So, I'm going to first mention my sample. My sample has a scope of population 1,507 movies, and I have the sample size 120 movies by using stratified sampling using rating variable as the strata. This is my sample. So let's move to my first aspect, availability. The claim I have is the proportion of movies that are streamed on a streaming service is always more than one half, which means that among 120 movies, how many of the movies are available to watch on each streaming service? The null hypothesis is p less than or equal to 0.5. The alternative hypothesis is p greater than the 0.5, and this is the claim. In this test, I'm going to use critical value approach and 0.025 significance level. For the first streaming service, Hulu, we can see that the test statistics we conducted by using the formula is minus 8.6, and the critical value of 0.025 is 1.96. So we can decide that since the test statistics is less than the critical value, we do not reject the null hypothesis that p is less than or equal to 0.5. We can conclude that there is not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim that the proportion of movies that are streamed on Hulu is always more than one half. We move to Netflix. Similar to Hulu, Netflix also has a small test statistics, and it is less than the critical value. So we decide and conclude in the same way as Hulu does. Different from Hulu and Netflix, Prime Video has a really large amount of ES. Among 120 movies, it has 60 ES, and the test statistics is 0. That is larger than Hulu and Netflix test statistics. Does that mean we can have Prime Video satisfy our claim? Definitely not. Although test statistic is large, it is 0, it is still less than the critical value 1.96, so that we still decide and conclude in the same way as Hulu and Netflix does. The Disney Plus is the same. It has a test statistics that is less than the critical value, so we deciding and conclude in the same way as the three streaming services does. So we have the results for the first aspect, is that no one actually wins. All of the four streaming services do not satisfy the claim, and so that no streaming service can be concluded as the best from this claim. Although Prime Video actually has a larger amount of movies available to watch compared to the other three. We move to the second aspect, the IMDb score. The claim is a streaming service is considered the best if the mean IMDb of movies in this streaming service is at least 8.0. The null hypothesis is mu greater than or equal to 8.0, and this is our claim. The alternative hypothesis is mu less than 8.0. For this test, I'm going to use p-value approach and 0.025 significance level. For Hulu, we conducted the mean, standard deviation, sample size, test statistics to get the p-value. And we compare the p-value with the significance level. As we can see, we have a really small p-value. So, since the p-value is less than 0.025, which is our significance level, we reject the null hypothesis that mu is greater than or equal to 8.0. So, we have our conclusion that there is sufficient evidence to warrant rejection of the claim that the mean IMDb of movies in Hulu is at least 8.0. Netflix has the same result. We have a really small p-value, and the p-value is less than the significance level, so we decide and conclude as the same way as Hulu does. Prime Video also had a really small p-value, and that is less than 0.025. So we can conclude in the same way as the two streaming services before. Disney Plus has the same result, that the p-value is less than or equal to significance level. So we reject the null hypothesis, and we conclude in the same way. The four streaming services all decide and conclude in the same way for aspects 2, 2. Therefore, we have our result that still no one wins. The four streaming services do not satisfy the claim. We move to the third aspect, rating. And the claim we have is, if a streaming service has more than 25% of its movies available for all viewers to watch, then parents think that the streaming service is excellent. The null hypothesis is p less than or equal to 0.25. The alternative hypothesis is p greater than the 0.25, and this is the claim. We're going to use the critical value approach. For Hulu, we can see that the test statistic is -2, and that is less than the critical value. So we can decide that since the test statistic is less than the critical value, we do not reject the null hypothesis that p is less than or equal to 0.25. And we conclude that there is not sufficient sample evidence to support the claim that Hulu has more than 25% of its movies available for all viewers. Netflix does the same. Since test statistic is less than the critical value, we do not reject the null hypothesis. Prime Video is also the same, so we decide and conclude in the same way as Hulu and Netflix does. Disney Plus then appears. It is different, as we easily see that the test statistic of Disney Plus is 3, and that is greater than the 1.96, our critical value. So we can decide that since the test statistics is greater and equal to critical value, we reject the null hypothesis that p is less than or equal to 0.25. So we can conclude that the sample data support the claim that Disney Plus has more than 25% of its movies available for all viewers. We have our results. Disney Plus win. Disney Plus satisfies the claim that has the largest proportion of movies for all viewers to watch. For this study, based on the three aspects, we can then conclude that Disney Plus is a streaming service satisfy the greatest number of claims from the significance test I have conducted. The last time, Prime Video won on my mid-semester project based on its best quality. But this time, we have Disney Plus. It might be different since for this time, I have a specific group, but last time I did not. And also, it may create bias for this study since Disney Plus has a very small sample size to test the proportion of movies for all viewers for the rating. So it is less than 30, and that may cause the bias. And that is the result. And that's all the contents for my presentation. Thanks for watching.